Hey, what's up guys? This is Dylan. I just want to do another quick video on how this board's laid out in its current state. Some of this might change as we're getting a little bit more familiar with kind of our workflow on this new console and what we do and don't need. So I've already kind of given you an overview of all the 6 banks of faders, all the 6 layers of faders, and you know how we have 2 banks of 12 faders. So now I want to go over kind of what my thought process was whenever I was setting up these layers. So basically on layer A on both sides, this is kind of like your, I guess what I would call your master outputs and DCAs, because that's exactly what it is. So starting on the left bank of faders, you've got all your DCAs. So we've got your drums, bass, guitar, lead, guitar, keys, tracks, vocals, choir, your delay and effect, so delay and reverb, DCAs, a band DCA, and a mic's DCA. So that's basically to control all of your band, vocalists, and microphones. It's kind of like a master. You can think of it as kind of a master volume control for each set of instruments, microphones, etc. So on the right bank, we've got our main outputs, which go to the PA speakers, and we've got an aux-fed sub output. So the subs are actually on an aux, so this aux goes directly out to the subwoofers. And then we've got our lobby matrix, which goes out to lobby speakers. You've got your video matrix, which goes out to all the lobby TVs. It goes over to the control room for the PIX recording device and for the HyperDeck recorders. And then we've got a recording matrix, which actually goes over to a new recording iMac that we have. We have a control room matrix, which goes to the control room speaker so that the control room can hear what's going on as they're following along with lyrics, as they're listening to Pastor for any slide cues, anything like that. We have a video aux, which literally just has the video channels in it. That video aux also goes to the control room matrix so that the control room can test videos and hear it in their speaker inside the control room without having to have the video on in the auditorium. So for example, at the end of service, we have some people praying at the front of the auditorium. We may need to test some videos to make sure that our recording works. For let's say the 6:30 service, if we do a video service, we want to test all of those recordings to make sure everything sounds great before we go live with a video service. So where this video aux comes in handy is we have people at the front of the auditorium praying, so we don't want to have a video playing back in the auditorium, kind of being a distraction for them. So the control room will be able to actually hear that recorded video feeding through the video aux into their control room speaker. I hope that makes sense. I could probably explain that a little bit better, but if you have any questions, just come find me. I'll try to explain a little better. The music aux, that literally just has the iPod in it for pre and post service music. That music aux is what gets fed to the lobby matrix before services. So whenever we're in run-throughs, rehearsals, out in the lobby, we're hearing music. We're not hearing the rehearsal. So that music is coming through the music aux so that we can keep our rehearsal audio only in the auditorium and people out there waiting for doors to open don't hear our rehearsal going on. The broadcast aux, that is our broadcast feed. That's what goes online. It goes to all of our lobby and video matrix during service, during worship, whenever we are live, so that everybody in the lobby can hear. If the lobby fails and we need to turn up the volume on the TVs out in the lobby, it's already getting there. It's also going to the recording devices and to live stream. So that's kind of where this is at. The reason I've got it set up with both of these on layer A is so that if we have somebody that's not real familiar with the console, but we want them to shut it down, A really quick, easy way to have them shut it down and make sure everything is muted and nothing's going to pop in the speaker when they shut things down is we can just tell them, hey, go to layer A on both banks of fader, make sure everything across the board is muted, and shut it down. So that's that. Layer B, this is basically your entire band all the way across the board, all your drums, all your guitars, keys, all that stuff. So this could be like a good worship kind of set. So, you know, you've got access to everything, all the individual channels for worship. And then just below that on this right side, you have your vocals. So you can flip back and forth between layer B and C during worship to mix your vocals, B to mix your guitars and keys, and all that kind of stuff. So here you kind of have full access to all of your band all together. Going to layer C on both ends, this is what I would use for transition out of worship into either like offering, or if we go straight into the message or something like that. You've got all of your communicator mics, and then you've got all your vocal mics. So a lot of times during a transition, let's say out of worship into offering, you've got a worship leader that prays, so we want to be able to have access to them to pull their fader up or down. And then you have a communicator coming up on like the host mic, or maybe for communion on an ear set mic that you want to have access to mute and unmute real quick and have control there. So now you can control your communicator and your vocals all on one layer. This also has a cool feature. It's called freeze in layer. So if we want to, we can go to our DCAs and we can actually freeze our band DCA. So there's this freeze button, and next to it says freeze plus mix. So if you hold freeze and you hit the mix button, it will freeze whatever channel you have selected. It'll freeze it, so no matter what layer you go to, it's always going to be there. So this band DCA is not moving at all. So I can go to layer C, have my band here to pull my band down for that transition. I can push my vocalist up, or my worship leader, whoever's doing a prayer, up if I need to get them to cut through. And then I can also get to my communicators, my pastors, my communion pastor real quick, and be able to control them as well as get the band down. And if I need to, for some reason, I can mute all my vocals, or I can go over and freeze my vocals here too. And I can mute the vocal DCA from there. So that's why I've got it set up that way. Again, some of this might change just depending on workflow and how we figure out the best way to do this. But that's kind of how layer C is set up. Pastors, communicators, this is kind of a transition out of worship into the message. After the message, you usually have like videos or something like that. So on layer D over here, you've got all your playback devices. So this is where you'd be, come out of offering into a video. You can have access to there and still have access to your communicators to get mutes and unmutes and all that stuff. Layer D on this end, these are basically your talkback mics for your music director, which I have baffled so I can always hear them in my monitors in case they need something on stage. And then my back of house talkback mic, so I can always hear the back of house audio engineer in case they need something from me. During the message, I'll usually keep everything on layer C. Layer C on the left side, layer D on the right side, so I can have my playback devices and my pastors. So at the end of service, we go on invitation. Sometimes we might have an iPad that comes up with tracks. You can have access to fade that up while still having your finger on pastor's mic to control levels. Again, layer E, this is just for broadcast. This is probably going to go away once we get broadcast kind of dialed in. And layer F is all your effects. Just real quickly, I want to go back to how I would mix during worship. So you've got all your band, everything on layer B. You have your drums, all your guitars, keys. And then what I like to do in worship is I like to always keep my hands on the vocalist as much as possible. So I've got my vocal mics here, my 4 vocalists, my 2 choir mics over here in a vocal group, and then I've also got all my vocal effects. So I specifically put the vocal effects here, that way we don't have to flip through a bunch of layers to get to effects. We don't have to freeze anything. It's just set up to where you get your vocals and effects all together. So that comes in handy. So I've got a long reverb, a short reverb, and then a delay and a doubler. So yeah, this is how I mix worship. Usually layer B, I usually keep layer B on the left bank, or I might flip to layer A for all my DCAs, and then I usually flip between layer B and C on my right bank to get between band on B and vocals on C. Got any questions? Let me know.